Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 16 of 2026. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. Follow me on X at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by FanDuel Sports, a proud partner with March Madness. If you like support the Odds Breakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com. Click shop and become a member. Pick any. For winning cappers, you get the premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us on patreon.com for nothing else. Please visit the Odds Breakers and become a free Picks and Telegram subscriber. All right. The beginning of college basketball week after Valentine's, whatever week it is. Had a little bit down of a week. Won on Friday, lost a little on Saturday, 0-2 on Sunday. One of those. Another bad beat involved. I've been just the purveyor of bad beats lately with the Fordham going to overtime. So that's tough. You know, it's 5% of games are supposed to go overtime. And, you know, that's tough because when you're on the under, even sometimes you're so right, it hits anyway. But in this situation, it lost by about 2 or 3 points. So was rough on that one. You know, the first half unders is kind of a little more attractive to me lately. But either way, Podcast plays went 2-1 with Wisconsin and Iowa State winning, but the Purdue over lost as Iowa can score pretty much anything at home. But either way, we are keeping on trucking. And there's been a lot of events this weekend. You had some NASCAR with Daytona 500, and sounds like we have a new MJ trophy because he was the owner of Tyler Riddick's car. So I don't know a lot about NASCAR, and just saw him hugging the trophy. I thought it was pretty cool. NBA All-Star Game's been going on. I don't know a ton about that, except that I heard the format was better this year. They heard it was a little bit more exciting. I don't get into NBA until after college basketball, and then into the playoffs is when I start betting it. Mostly, I'll bet anything if somebody gives me a good play. But our focus here remains 100% college basketball. And then obviously UFC, big events. We'll talk about pay-per-views. No more pay-per-views, of course, because they are now on Paramount Plus, which is great. So what used to be pay-per-views are still numbered. UFC 325, 326 coming up, right? But that's when we'll discuss the UFC. But lots of action this weekend in college basketball, and some upsets, some interesting performances. You know, if you ask me who's going to win the national championship, I still would say Michigan or Arizona. Maybe if you throw in like an Iowa State, a Houston, or a Duke, or Florida now for sure. But you know, it's gotten a little bit more interesting with Arizona dropping 2 in a row now. You know, in my opinion, I thought that's gotten a little bit more interesting. I thought I when it was tied at halftime, I decided to bet Arizona live, and I lost it. They lost outright. I laid 5.5, and that was a bad bet. But Texas Tech just had one of those games like when they played against Duke earlier this year. They just sometimes show up. Then they go ahead and play a team like UCF and lose by 8. You know, this Texas Tech team is a definite head scratcher. I'll tell you that. Coming up on Tuesday, they're going to be 9.5, 10-point favorites at Arizona State in a massive letdown spot. Do you have the cojones to bet against Texas Tech? Well, the spot tells you to do it, and sometimes you just got to hold your nose. So we'll see how that goes. But there is just some huge games coming up this week, and I'm very excited. This is one of the best college basketball weeks of the year, actually, because you have Michigan versus Duke and many others. We're going to have some splash sports contests coming up. And actually, I think even starting by the 23rd, we're going to be able to create our March Madness Survivor pool. And I hope it gets as much traction as our NFL playoff survivor that almost had 1,000 entries. If that's the case, same format, $20 a pop, multiple entries if you'd like. I'd like to limit it at 10, but we'll see when I dive deeper in it next week. Just be ready to pounce when we release those survivor tournaments. Now, I want them to have conference survivor tournaments because you can have it the same format as the NFL. You can because there's 14 teams that make the playoffs in the NFL. In most of these big conferences, there's 14 teams in their tournaments. 4 don't make it in the Big Ten, and that way you could have the same format. Pick two, the first few, and then pick one. And I'm wishing that we can get that. I don't think we're going to get it just this year from Splash Sports, but they're going to take a look at it, and hopefully we'll get it for next year. But that's what's fun is these conference tournaments. I'm sometimes more excited for the conference tournaments than I am for the NCAA tournament. It just depends upon if I like somebody, in these conference tournaments. But that's what March Madness is all about. Everyone calls the NCAA tournament March Madness, but no, I think March Madness is really the whole aspect of teams on the bubble making it or not making it. Cinderella's getting in by winning their conference tournaments. March Madness is the conference tournaments, I'm hoping a big name doesn't win some of these, power conferences and somebody else sneaks in. That'd be fun to see. Somebody else getting hot. That's what makes March Madness to me. And, after March Madness kind of cools off and goes baseball and NFL draft and preparation for the next year's football season. It's a very cyclical thing over here at the Odds Breakers, but we can keep this podcast short and sweet, and that way, we can obviously have some time back and still get our play for Tuesday after we get into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Want to be a professional handicapper? Check out theoddsbreakers.com, where we now have live odds and pick tracking. Click on live odds pick tracking, and you can start tracking your picks, partnering with TallySight. Once you develop records and a following, you can use that information to move to the next level, gaining all that experience in your sports betting career. Make sure you check out live odds and pick tracking at theoddsbreakers.com, partnering with TallySight.
The good, the bad, and the ugly of the weekend. And starting with JT Toppin in Texas Tech, beating Arizona. Why would he not get National Player of the Year, the Wooden Award? Why would he not get that? It drives me nuts that, I'm hearing a lot of national media is already giving it to Carlos Boozer Jr. Makes no sense to do that. I think that, Cameron Boozer's great. And did I just call him Carlos Boozer Jr.? Cameron Boozer is great, but minus 2,000? When JT Toppin kind of single-handedly is winning games, and Duke played JT Toppin's team, Duke's got a lot more talent, and Texas Tech, because of JT Toppin, beat them, and now they beat Arizona, and you're not really looking at JT Toppin as serious. He's still at 20-1. That blows my mind a little bit. That's got to be wrong. And if it's not wrong, they shouldn't even have this award, and they shouldn't have any voters out there. Also, Flag won it last year. Come on. Can't get back-to-back Dukes. Miami beating NC State. I was one of my wrong ones on Saturday. Miami buckled down, went on the road, and took care of business, and now they're probably squarely in the tournament unless disaster happens to Miami. But now Miami beat North Carolina and NC State. That should give them some props here to make the tournament. We got the Wisconsin blowing out Michigan State at home. The Badgers on Friday night. That was fantastic. And we were on the Badgers. Was very excited for that game. It was just a nice night. It made my night to see Izzo get crushed after that awful Illinois victory you had. Wisconsin is just weird, man. They're a monster number to make the Final Four right now. What is it? 27-1, something like that, to make the Final Four. Now it's down to 20-1. It was 27-1 on Saturday. Jesus, man, that's a team that maybe could catch a little fire here. They have an easy schedule coming up too. And Wisconsin kind of got through all the hard games. You know, they could kind of almost win out with Ohio State, Iowa, Oregon, Washington, Maryland, and of course at Purdue is the big one. But they have a very winnable schedule. The NBA All-Star format, I guess, was better, so I put that in the good. Not for everything, though, from what I hear. Now, the Tyler Riddick NASCAR win. Daytona, MJ finally winning another title. That was cool. And him hugging it again. All the pictures. The Florida Gators. Whew. Now they're serious again? What? The Florida Gators back after losing those guys? Oh, my God. That's hard to stop. That is hard to stop. That's hard to mess with there. And if you remember, I just thought the best point guard last year in Walter Clayton, was just a massive loss. Is Elijah Martin gone too? Yeah. And then they're just getting it done with some other guys like Xavier Lee, Boogie Fland. Boogie Fland comes on in. Yeah, I mean, he played in Arkansas and he transferred to Florida and he's getting it done. This Florida team is on the brink of maybe winning it again in my mind. So they moved up. Now for the bad. Top teams not covering last weekend. It was kind of weird. I know Michigan did, but definitely Arizona lost outright. You have Duke that did not cover against Clemson. Well, it just depends upon what number you had. Kind of a crazy end of that game. What else didn't cover? Houston didn't cover. They played Kansas State, but Jerome Tang still lost his job, so you can throw him in the bad too. And also, Illinois did cover. Florida didn't cover against Kentucky. They were close. It was 9. And then Iowa State did cover, and UConn did not cover. So a lot of those big names didn't cover. UConn only beat Georgetown by 4 points at home. Very sus, man. The Mountain West, they're bad. The conference sucks this year. What's their best team is New Mexico or Utah State. Probably Utah State from a KenPom factor, but you'll have the usual suspects like San Diego State in there. Colorado State used to be good, but now they're not. It's just Wyoming's bad again. Yeah, Boise State, not great. Lost outright to UNLV at home on Friday. That was in the bad. Plenty of bad. Fordham's overtime. Ugh, bad. They were just killing the unders. Of course, Texas A&M, that makes the bad, losing 4 in a row. But now the ugly. St. John's versus Providence. Over 6 guys ejected in that game. Constant fights. My God, guys. Did you take a bunch of testosterone before you went out there? Just awful for, college basketball, having to see a bunch of kids just constantly fighting each other. ACC, they're not that good this year. Louisville, Duke, and then what else you got now? Because there's some suspectness with NC State after they lost, and North Carolina's got some problems that we're going to get into in a minute. The ACC just not looking that good. Miami of Ohio being undefeated with no top 65 wins. Let's see if that changes tomorrow. North Carolina and BYU injuries. North Carolina lost Caleb Wilson, who was playing over 75 minutes a game. He would take over 28% of the shots. And then they had the big bounce game, but then now they're going to be massive dogs against NC State coming up here. I mean, the market's going to know this shit. It's not like you're going to jump in before the books friggin' put those numbers out correctly on these big names. Then obviously Richie Saunders out for BYU, hurt himself, and only got to play 1 minute against Colorado. So sad for BYU there. And they got a big game coming up against Arizona. There is a lot of great games, like I said, coming up this week. The slam dunk competition was ugly because nobody was freaking there to watch it. They had it like 2:00 or something on a Saturday. Same with the 3-point contest. Bunch of names that people don't know. Freaking retire that thing. It was great during the Jordan years, and then Kobe and Vince Carter, and then after that, it's just kind of repeat and just with some tweaks a little bit. And, what kind of car are you going to jump over this time? It's done. It's done. Sorry. And then finally, the worst and ugliest thing that's been happening is just Adam Silver with the NBA. 8 teams freaking tanking already. 8 teams. I don't know why the hell you'd spend money going to an NBA game. Kid comes there. Where's LeBron at? Oh, he's taking today off. You can do that? Where is Mitchell today? Where is Wemby? I mean, Jesus, the NBA's a freaking mess. And sadly, it's like going back to that whole theory of you don't need 82 games to figure out who's the best. Well, they're never going to get rid of that because of the money, but they need a better solution via paying freaking people to not be skipping games, And I don't know how they're going to do that because it's hard to punish someone for an injury. But this is just absolutely getting ridiculous. And Adam Silver has catered way too much to the players.
You rotten criminals, how dare you!
All right. Well, that just leaves us a play that we're going to look at for Tuesday night basketball. There's a couple out there that I've already made, but we're going to take a shot against Miami, Ohio. We're going to take a shot against them. They drive me nuts. These guys should not be undefeated, and it's not like this spread is that bad. I think that a guy like Frank Martin is the perfect kind of coach to want to upset this team. Now, Frank Martin's at home here with UMass, the Minutemen. UMass not a good defense at all. I'm not playing it because of their defense. As a matter of fact, Massachusetts is not the greatest team, but they are 15-11 somehow. They did beat Florida State this year. When they played Miami, Ohio, they lost by 2 points away. Okay, now they're at home. Seen them before. You got a 3.5 point dog here. You got to sprinkle the money line, of course. But a situation where I like the offense for UMass, ranking 94th in effective field goal percentage. If they didn't turn over the ball, their efficiency would be better. So they got to hold on to the ball. They don't shoot great free throws, but they are not favorites. I hate betting favorites that can't shoot free throws. But if there's a team that could beat Miami, Ohio coming up here, there's not many more strikes you're going to have at the iron. It's going to have Miami, Ohio's got Bowling Green at home coming up, and that's like them in Toledo is literally the only chances in both of those games at home. At least this week against the Minutemen, it is away. So I think this is going to be their hardest challenge coming here, and you might get an undefeated team coming up to the MAC conference tournament. So I like UMass here. I like the 3.5 points. I would like it at 2.5. I wouldn't like it at 2. So we're going to take UMass right now at DraftKings plus 3.5 for 2 stars.
Duh. Winning.
All right. Well, we will be back later this week with a wonderful guest to talk about the weekend in college basketball and anything else important that comes across our plate. Thank you so much for listening to this quick podcast. If you have any questions for us, feel free to tweet us at The Oddsbreakers, email us at info@theoddsbreakers.com. Have a wonderful rest of your week and go get some.